everybody, to this episode of Woman Fully Alive. I'm your host, Madeline Eames, and today on the podcast, I am really excited to dive into this conversation with Dr. Sarah Robbins. We were already just talking as we were getting going, and I thought I got to press record because this is just too good to miss. Um, so Dr. Robbins, she's a gastroenterologist, a nutrition specialist, and the founder of Well Sunday Health Corporation. And I ran across her work somehow through the chronic pain field, and her work in gut health and gut brain and the whole system for helping us to feel more alive and just more healthier in our bodies and our minds. So Sarah's a speaker. She is still a clinician. She's still a practicing specialist in gut health, nutrition, and lifestyle medicine, and over 20 years of expertise on such a wide range of topics that I know this conversation is going to be a lot of fun. So and so important and all like something that I feel has been missed until maybe, in at least in my world, until recent years. So, Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so much fun to be here. We've had a couple of conversations and they're always enjoyable. So it's
Yeah.
great to dive in. We were talking just before we started recording about simplicity. And I think that's like such a great place to start because
Hmm.
I just am seeing and hearing so much noise. My Instagram feed is full of all of these different things that we need to be doing with thinking about hormonal health and mental health and gut health, and it becomes really really overwhelming. It's something that I see a lot in my practice when people we really dive into getting control over your health and feeling good about things, and I find that there's just a lot of noise out there. So I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest messages I have for people is it's relatively straightforward to get good health. It is actually simple. The hard part is doing it. But the things that are good for your gut are good for your brain, are good for your heart. Like they're all connected.
Right.
And they're small things, right? Eat
Yeah.
well, get good sleep, exercise, take care of your mental health. Those and have good social connections. Those five things will
Mm.
help you actually with every aspect of your health. They're so tightly intertwined, and they really
Wow.
don't have to be
Yeah.
that complicated.
I just felt
So
like my
I just
shoulders
think
just
just
go
five
like,
things.
oh my goodness, like it's so human, so just real and simple, and getting back to that, like making your way through all the noise and the overwhelm of so much information. But
Yeah,
I
yeah. I truly believe it's simple. Like just move, sleep, eat well, be mindful. Some kind of emotional, mental practice, spiritual, whatever that looks like for you, and social connection. Like have friends, have family, find ways to be connected.
Yeah.
That's really, when you look across all different health system, it doesn't matter if you're looking at gut health or mental health or whatever, like it all actually comes back to those fundamental levers, and they're all within our control.
Right. I think that's such an important part of it too. Like we have felt, I know so many women that I've worked with and that listen that feel so helpless that
Mhm.
now we've got to think about menopause, we got to think about hormones, then we got to get out and exercise, and then we got to if you think of it in your mind, it sounds so complicated. But it's actually not. It's probably a lot of what they're doing already.
I think so. And like if we think about hormonal health, for example, that's such a hot topic nowadays, and it's again it's everywhere in our social feeds, and a lot of what you would do for hormonal health is actually exactly the same as what you would do for gut health. It is gut health actually, and so it's like it's eat your vegetables, have fiber, That's about it. And
Right.
and that probably will help you lose weight and get lots of walking in.
So connected. Yeah.
It's you know, it is that straightforward, I think, and just I find there's such a burden of information and
Hmm.
just
It can
taking it.
really
I
weigh
grew
you
up on a
down.
farm. I'm like, you just take it back to like, what would your grandma do? What was on the farm? Like, just make it really straightforward, realistic,
Yeah.
honest,
Manageable.
down to earth, manageable.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
curious with
yeah.
that about because you come from the medical system that's it can get pretty complicated and
Yeah.
busy. And as a specialist, I'm thinking of all these specialists like kind of in their that we've got the brain specialists and the gut specialists and this is kind of like so I'm curious a little bit about your story about how you came from or are still there, but then moved into this field and developed Well Sunday that incorporates nutrition and well-being for people online.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't life just kind of weaves these paths and I think I finally got to a stage where I just decided to start to take them instead of resisting them. So it's sort of now I just think of being along for the ride. But grew up on a farm, like just a good Southern Alberta kid on a ranch life and I don't know, I loved biology and science and all those kind of things. So eventually that led to doing a master's in nutrition. And then I went to med school, and gastroenterology seemed like a great fit. So I ended up doing some more clinical nutrition after my medical training, and that was really my passion and my first love within gastroenterology has been nutrition. And the more specialized you get, the more narrow your focus becomes. So I ended up doing a lot of work in intestinal failure with, a really narrow focus around feeding people through the vein or through feeding tubes. And it's sort of like the tip of the iceberg in nutrition and in disease, like the far end of things. And I really miss the practical side of like everyday life that what my lived
Yeah.
experience was, what my friends were experiencing or family or colleagues would ask. And I just found the other part of my practice, the other 50% of my practice in the office, was people just asking for really practical, down to earth advice.
Mm.
And I didn't have time in that context to give it to them, to just sit down and have a conversation. And it kind of takes me back to just being on the farm. Like, how would you just sit at the farm and have a cup of coffee and have a conversation about what to do for your health? And that's like my favorite part of being a physician. And I didn't have the time or the opportunity to do that. So I thought, well, how am I going to do that? This is, looks really different. And I decided to step away from a really traditional practice so that I could do this kind of thing, have podcasts, do more writing, media opportunities, things like that, because it gives people, I think, a different set of information that's kind of um, more filtered. And I just wanted to be able to find ways to have conversations rather than these 15-minute appointments that you can't get out
Yeah.
of when you're in medicine.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I'm like about a year out of that now, and my lens is so different. Um,
Mm.
it's I was thinking of skiing up at Big White the other day, and you're at the top of the hill and it's cloudy, but you're at the very top, you can look down and you know where you're going, you know which run you want to take. But when you're down in it and it's a whiteout and it's cloudy and you can't see anything and you're just kind of in the thick of things, you're so focused on just getting out of the mess. You can't even really figure out where you're going. You're kind of just hoping that you get to the bottom
Survival.
somehow. And so just survival. And so now I feel like I've taken myself out of being in the thick of things and have this lens where I can kind of look down on health and look down with a broader view, like more like a bird's eye view of health. And it's taken me from this super specialized intestinal failure spectrum to how do we broadly impact health and well-being, and how do we really think more about prevention and really basic interventions that empower people to take control of their health. Because I think at the end of the day, that's really what most people are asking. It's like, what do I do
Yeah.
to look after my health? Not what do I put in the hands of my healthcare providers, but what can I actually do that gives me control over my outcomes, over my own well-being.
Oh, that makes so much
So
sense.
here I am.
To be able to, like, what can I do today? Like right today in the next thing that
Yeah.
I eat or in the next way that I move, like the empowerment of people of, and we're talking about, women at midlife that, often come with a lot of questions and concerns about, their future health, their present, maybe gut issues or, anxiety. Like I'm curious what you would hear of the most now in like from we'll just say women, um
Yeah.
and how, is it IBS, like irritable bowel,
Yeah. Most of my practice from a gastroenterology standpoint is irritable bowel now.
oh
Um, but it's interesting because it's never alone. People come, they'll say come to me with a tummy ache or digestive problems, but it's never just that if you take the time to have a conversation.
right,
There's always some element of stress or mental or emotional health that is happening behind that. There's often, a really, really busy lifestyle and running around and trying to get all the things done in the day that's underlying choices that people make that affect their gut health. Usually we're concerned about our hormonal health and weight management. So it
mm,
starts, the question starts as what can I do for my gut? But when you start to dig into it, it's actually a bigger, broader question. And when we focus on just this one little area, I don't think we actually get a lot of progress or a lot of inroads. And I see that all the time. People will go from doctor to doctor to doctor. They'll say, I've been dealing with this for 20 years. I've been dealing with it for 30 years. And I think
yeah,
part of that problem is that we take this very narrow view of like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my gut at the expense of the rest of my body or not thinking more broadly. And where we get the best health outcomes for any body system is actually when we think about a really holistic approach.
right. So
So it's
what would
never
that,
just gut health.
it's never just gut health, and like, and you said like every time there's always something bigger going on, some emotional or lifestyle, like the busyness that creates stress in the body. I imagine like the gut is kind of clenched up, so it's gonna,
Yeah.
it's gonna be irritable. uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're better now if we've got so much more knowledge around the gut brain axis. And that really, when we start to really think about the gut brain axis, that really changes how we can think about gut health and solve gut health problems. They're so tightly interconnected, right? Your brain talks to your gut and your gut talks to your brain, and that conversation is continuous, and you will always have it. It doesn't come to an end, right? If they're not talking to each other, we've got bigger problems.
you're not here.
And so
Yeah.
you're not here. So they're always going to have a conversation. So the idea that somehow I can just like do this one intervention and then this gut health problem is going to go away is really unrealistic, because that conversation between your brain and your gut is normal physiology. It's just that it's amplified, or the conversation is kind of deranged. And
Right.
so when we think about that as being an axis, your gut talking to your brain and your brain talking back to your gut, means that there's multiple levels of intervention. So you don't need to always start with your gut in order to make your gut feel better, right? You can intervene at the level of your brain, for example. So sometimes managing stress has a bigger impact on gut health than any diet thing that you could throw at it.
Right.
because you're intervening at a different level. So, you know, if you think of so many health systems, they're really very circular arguments, right? And that makes it complicated. But the beauty of that is also that you can intervene at any one of those points and create change in your health outcome. And so I think what I see often is people trying to intervene at the same entry point over and over and over again, and they don't feel good. They're not making inroads. But but if you think about that conversation as being very circular, it's also logical to think you can intervene somewhere else
Mhm.
and start to make an.
I can see how, like, the focus on symptoms that, I just want this symptom to go away. So I'll do whatever it takes to take this symptom away would be a very specific approach. Like only
Yeah.
focus on, say, pain when you have a lot of stress. So is there a process that you take people through to kind of to tease out what's a good place for them? Just if I came to you with gut problems or I say IBS. Um, how do
Yeah.
you how do you tease that out? Where to start?
Yeah, you know, in the context of my practice, in the context of a specialist practice, you always start at what the presenting problem is, you know. So if people come in with a abdominal pain or altered bowel habits or something like that, you know, you start there because it's a natural place to have a conversation and dig into things. And it kind of, as a function of time and being a specialist, it's where you go. But if if I had a choice and I wasn't not working in that context, I would say, I'm not worried about your symptoms right now. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what is your vision of health?
Mm,
If you closed your eyes and you just thought to yourself, what does perfect health look to me like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years?
oh my goodness.
How do I feel? Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? What activities am I doing? Am I hiking with my partner? Am I crawling around on the floor with my grandkids? Like, am I traveling? How do I feel? How do I look? Like, really, really vividly imagine, what do you want your health to look like in 5 years?
That's
Because
such a
that,
powerful
you know, you
question.
can't,
Yeah.
it's where you need to go. That's where you're going. And so after that, you just back up the train and reverse engineer it to start to figure out how to get there. I think we often start at the presenting problem, you know, and
Mhm.
and we've got all these symptoms and maybe medications, and but dialing that back and just thinking very clearly, how do I want to feel in 5 years,
Yeah.
1 year? And then just reverse engineer that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it comes back to those 5 levers. And so that is what I get into, is like, how much are you sleeping?
Hmm.
How much are you exercise? There's lots about diet stuff that we can dive into. Um, you know, I think that we often forget the power of social connection and friendship and stuff. But you know, that vision, if you think about it, most of us in that context of our health are surrounded by family or friends or grandkids, or in that, the back of our mind, that piece is all there. And it's absolutely critical to our well-being from a mental standpoint. But you know, it affects your gut health, it
Oh
affects
my
your
gosh.
microbiome.
Yeah. Y- Um, and I just thinking about how, like, it's such a different question as opposed to not what's wrong with you, but not how do you feel right now, what's getting in the way, what doesn't feel good, but to how you would like to feel opens up the whole world basically, where how to move forward. Because often, like, for women, those social connections are so important, like you say. And sometimes we feel like I can do that when I feel better. But you're talking about that is part of the plan. That's part of
Yeah,
the
you
getting
need to
better.
plan it. Like, how do you want to feel? And then figure out how to get there. Because I think when you don't know where you're going, like how would you get there? You don't know where you're going. And so then what do? Well, then you look at everything under the sun, and then there's overwhelm. So
Hmm.
when you have a clear vision of where you want to go with your health, I mean, we would do that with financial planning, or you do it with like, I mean, you could pick an element of your life, right? You'd have a plan for it. So that to me is the really interesting conversations, actually helping people to decide what their vision of great health would be, and not
Yes,
somebody else's too,
their
like
vision.
yours.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
vision, because we're fed so much societal construct around what good health looks like, right? and
Hmm.
and I think that's very true when I look at the hormonal health conversation for women, when I hear about that, because this idea of hormonal balance comes up quite often, but like, what is that really? and
Hmm.
and so I thought, oh, I'm going to dig into the literature around that, and try and figure out from a medical standpoint what's hormonal balance. Well, there's actually it's that is a societal construct. It's actually not really a medical term. And if we dig even deeper, when we think about hormonal health and the idea of balance, most of what we're kind of referring to is an image we have of like what this perfect woman looks
Right. Right.
like, right? Like it's like someone who's
Yeah. What is
young
that
and
even?
young for her age and sexy and has great hair and is vibrant and all these things. That's a social construct of what health looks like. It's actually not a biological meaning or definition.
Right. Right. And I think at midlife we run into that a lot. Like, boom, head on into how am I supposed to be now? Oh, I should be looking
Yeah.
younger, or I should be doing things differently than what really feels right for me. And that's really what this podcast
Yeah.
is all about. Like, that I
And
never actually thought
that
of.
having that vision.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you know what that is, most of the time when you think about that, it actually doesn't lead you back to this is how I look, or like a social construct. It's I'm crawling on the floor with or playing with my grandkids. I'm hiking with my partner. I'm like, it's you're out doing something in life. So your vision for health, when I really push people to come up with a strong vision, it's usually a functional one. It's related to their capacity to do the things that bring them joy. It's
Yes,
not how they
that's
look.
it. It's not it when it comes down to it. They talk. You're saying like
Yeah.
they talk about what they'd like to do if they
Yeah.
could, if they felt better.
What brings you quality if you could, if your health permitted you to do that?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think gut health can be like that. You can reverse engineer it, to get to where you want to go, but it's taking that long view, not the real. It's not a short.
It's not taking a medication and then you feel better today.
No, like gut health. The best analogy I can think of is like an old growth forest, and it's got this like abundant, rich ecosystem, the microbiome,
Hmm.
which really is like ecosystem. It's got all these different pieces that fit together and talk to each other and communicate with your gut and communicate with your brain. And actually, there's a microbiome muscle, uh, musculoskeletal health axis, and the skin microbiome talks to the gut microbiome. So there's these ecosystems in us that are sort of flourishing and thriving and talking to each other. And so if we think of that like an old growth forest in our bodies that we want to nurture and direct and sort of push in a certain direction, rather than this like idea of clear cutting things, like I'm going to do a cleanse, or I'm going to take a round of antibiotics, or I'm going to cut out all this type of food.
Yeah.
That approach is like very short term and very short sighted. It gets us maybe a couple of weeks or maybe a couple months of wellness, but it's like we clear cut something and we haven't gone in and taken this approach of there's like this ecosystem in here, and how do we nurture it and preserve it so that over time it gets us to where we want to go. That is associated with better, way better long-term outcomes than
Yeah.
this kind of fast and furious approach, which we like for everything, but
Right.
isn't realistic.
And that's really, what is being often sold out there is like the 3-day cleanse or the, fasting. And I know there's, some benefits to that, but I love the idea of nurturing the soil of this old growth
Yeah,
forest. So it can flourish and be healthy. Like healthy without healthy soil, you can't grow anything healthy.
exactly. And that translates into mental, it like the gut brain axis, right? It translates into improvements in like a number of mental health disorders, anxiety, depression. That is an emerging field, which is fascinating. And I think we're just starting to really dig into. It translates into hormonal health, right? So much of our gut microbiome actually assists in the metabolism of estrogen and is incredibly important for estrogen metabolism. And we're starting to really understand how hormonal health is actually tightly intertwined with gut health. Cardiovascular disease outcomes can be attached to that. There's metabolic outcomes, weight management outcomes. So if we come back to just how do we get like this really solid foundation and nurture the soil of our gut, all of those things actually will fall in alignment with that. And so it can be relatively simple in the sense of just do those quality things that are going to really nurture the soil long term.
Right. So yeah, like the microbiome, we hear a lot about it, and it just sounds like that. Just is related to so many systems in our body. If we're trying to, and maybe this is too specific, even, what do we need to know about that? Is there something that for anybody that's listening that's curious about that,
Yeah.
about nurturing that? Obviously, look at your whole life, but is there anything specific you recommend to people about this, about the
Yeah,
microbiome?
absolutely. I mean, I think there's so much that we're learning and will continue to learn, but there are fundamentals that will hold true, that will hold the test of time. And and really what we want to achieve with the microbiome is abundance and diversity. You want that to be like this super healthy ecosystem that has a lot of diversity and a lot of different types of bugs, because they do different things and they talk to each other differently. And the way to get there is lots of fiber, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of antioxidants, which, they're great for your skin and your hair and your heart and your diabetes. Like it's all the same, right? So that really whole food, plant-based, high fiber approach to eating and unprocessed foods. Like I can't emphasize that enough. I think
Yes.
just whole foods, really trying to make inroads around processed foods makes
Okay.
a big difference.
And when you talk about diversity, I'm thinking about vegetables and different colors of vegetables and like trying a lot of different varieties. Does that come into
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Different microbes like different kinds of things. So if we want abundance and diversity of our microbiome, we need to have abundance and diversity of our diet,
Yeah.
because all those different nutrients are going to allow different types of bacteria to flourish. So um, when we talk about food and illness, or symptoms, I often see people cutting back. They eliminate. They'll
Hmm.
start with a food group, and then that doesn't really make them feel that much better. So then they'll eliminate the next food group, and then they eliminate the next food group. And when I see them, at the end of the day, they've got this like very narrow range of food that they'll tolerate. And in the short term, that feels better. But in the long term, they've got this more and more and more narrowed diet, which results in a narrow ecosystem. And so long term, we're not going to get those health benefits and outcomes that we want, because we've really narrowed the ecosystem. So abundance and diversity in diet is key, and then avoiding the things that are not good for your own health or not good for your microbiome. So
Okay.
processed foods,
Sugar. Like,
it's a sugar, high fructose corn syrup, emulsifiers and stuff like that we find in processed foods. They've clearly been shown to be hard on the gut microbiome. So there's a lot of reasons that we probably don't want to have those for our own human cells, but you don't want them for the cells in your gut either.
right. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, like you talk about like rather than we have been at least, in my generation I'm in my 50s, we were brought up on a steady diet of diet, and
Yes.
restriction and constriction and well, don't do that and don't do that. And that in itself brings up, for the mind, like for the gut brain axis, stress. And that I'm not doing things
Yeah.
right, because I've been trying to stick to this, but then I fell off the wagon and did this. And it brings up a whole other thing. And you're talking about like abundance and diversity that just in general feels better for a life.
It feels better. It feels more pleasant. We end up with this very restrictive approach, right? I can't tell you how many times a day someone comes to me and says I'm on X diet or Y diet, and what they've done is they've cut out all of this stuff in an attempt to feel better, and that really only gets us short-term results.
Hmm.
It doesn't get us the long-term results that we really want to achieve. And so for sure, there's ways of manipulating diet in the short term to kind of peel things back, start to feel better, and then add things back in. But long term, we really want to work towards abundance and diversity. And I think just that ease of living, like
Yeah.
I feel like that's something we're all kind of looking for when life is really busy, and it feels like there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of rules for living.
Yes. A lot of
just
shoulds and
just
should
thinking
not.
of
Yeah.
should and should not, and don't eat this and don't do this and don't do that, as opposed to actually add things back in. Actually enjoy what you're eating. Um, enjoy the process of health and
Mm.
getting there, right? So when you have a vision for where you're going, then you can kind of start to have some fun with it, and you can enjoy the process of
Right.
getting there. See how fun.
That just feels so much better, so much more human to enjoy that piece of chocolate as opposed to thinking you shouldn't have it and then restrict it and then you go and eat, 5 chocolate bars. Like it's and the stress involved in that.
Totally, totally. And if we think about it, yeah, we probably want to choose a small little bit of high quality chocolate over a big candy bar. That's true.
Yeah.
But there's still room to have enjoyment, in you know in that context. And I think there's just so much beauty in food. We're really so blessed. I like it when people feel like they can start to add things back into their diet, and find
Mm.
ways of doing this. It's good for the soul as just as much as it's good for the microbiome.
Yeah, yeah, I can really see that. What's good for the microbiome is good for the soul. Um,
Think so.
and so, is there anything that we should really take away for, say, someone that's really struggling? Maybe got a lot of women. They've got a lot going on, and a lot of stress, and perhaps the gut issues. Um, Like, is there anything that, everything that you've said makes so much sense that they should remember about this like gut brain axis that's like this ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Well, I would say if your grandma wouldn't have cooked it and you can't spell it, don't eat it. Like, there's so much food label stuff. So if you can, honestly, if you couldn't spell it, then we probably don't want to have it. And so just make it really simple. Just choose whole foods, fibers, and enjoy the process of eating. Because I think we've
Mhm.
taken a lot of fun out of it. So that would be one of the first things is just to take time and enjoy, the all the abundance and diversity that we have out there, and we do have a lot.
Yeah.
And the other is just to kind of start to plan your health, and that doesn't have to look big. That can be taking. That's why I called it Well Sunday. Take 30 minutes on Sunday morning. Like it's nothing out of your week. Take 30 minutes and sit down and plan your health for the week. What does your exercise regimen look like? Is it a walk? Do you need to phone a friend so that you can meet on Wednesday? Put it in your calendar. What's your sort of basic grocery plan look like for the week? What is your timeout? Where do you have a mental health break in your So just take like that 30 minutes on Sunday, or whatever day it is for you. But if you take that and just plan out what you need to do that week to get closer to your health goal, you'll actually get it done.
Yeah.
When and I think it can be just as simple as that. So you start to work towards where you want to go.
I'm absolutely going to do that. I'm going to do that. Um, and to get closer, to take that time to plan ahead to get closer to where you want to be, as opposed to, I'm going to run. I mean, that might be part of it, but that I'm going to run a marathon, or that might be part of your plan. But looking at taking 30 minutes, I was wondering why it was called Well Sunday. 30 minutes
Yeah,
on a Sunday morning to go to your own church of your own health and plan out how all those different areas, what will
absolutely.
take you a little bit closer.
If you take an hour on Sunday just to plan your health, that's 1% of your week. Like surely we can find 1% of our week just to make a plan.
Hmm.
Honestly, it's just like thinking about, okay, who am I going to walk with this week? Where do I, you know, meet friends, or what's the basic grocery plan for the week? Because then you've got a plan, and
Yeah, you
that
have
is
a
what's going to
plan.
get you to your health.
Yeah, yeah, and if that plan doesn't work out exactly as you planned it, a lot of self forgiveness there, because it's, you're headed in that direction of what you've talked about right at the very beginning of what your vision is for your health.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always I mean, there's always curveballs. We all have them. And
Life,
but that's
yeah.
okay, because then you sort of think, all right, well, I thought of that last week and it didn't work out. Now I'm going to think about it again for next week. And if the same barrier is going to come up over and over again, well, that hour of thinking about it is your opportunity to create a different strategy and come at it a different way, rather than doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it's really like just thinking about that as more of an iterative process. Like, oh, I tried something this week and my plan to exercise every Wednesday didn't work because of business meetings or something, or kids hockey, or whatever the thing was. So I'm going to revisit that. Maybe I need to do Thursday morning walks, or just,
Yeah.
but when we take the time to plan that, it allows us to figure out what our strategy is going to be.
Right, right. Like an experiment. There's no failure here. There's no, like, it's like
No, no.
there's no pass and fail. It's just like you say, like, look at it, what worked, what didn't work,
Yeah.
and take time
Yeah,
to
and then
implement
and
it.
just learn from that, and you're like, okay, well, I need to keep engineering this, so I'm going to go on to the next part of it. And I think that takes away a lot of the guilt that we have learned to build into our health
Mhm.
outcomes. We somehow or other feel guilty if we haven't accomplished something or done
Oh,
something, as
100%.
opposed to thinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the long-term road, and every small little intervention is actually what adds up to a really great health outcome,
Yeah.
rather than this like quick fix strategy, which doesn't I don't think most people feel better at the end of the day.
No, because it's that pass or fail. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's such a rich such a rich conversation. I feel that could, expand in so many ways. But the idea that has really stuck with me is, the vision and taking that time on Sunday to make yourself a plan that feels good, and that this is an ongoing conversation with yourself and between your gut and your brain. It's not a one and done deal. It's not a diet, don't diet. It's it's an ongoing conversation like of
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
basically.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's just giving yourself that, I think, that gift of time. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but taking the time to figure out where you want to go.
Mhm. Mhm. It's so much more simple, coming back to yourself, like you say, turning down the volume of the noise, of the overwhelm. What works for me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Sarah, I
Yeah.
really want to thank you for this conversation. Lovely as always. So, how do people find out about you? And we'll drop some links in the show notes. But where are you most active? How can someone look you up?
Yeah, so my website wellsunday.com has lots of gut health resources, and we're still building many of those out. I do webinars, so those are always fun to drop in on. I usually do them in the evenings, and on a variety of gut health topics. But I'm always happy for someone to email me just at the on through the website, and if they've got questions, usually if one person has questions, somebody else does, and I can turn it into a webinar or a blog post or something, and answer questions that way. So
Awesome.
definitely find me on the web and Instagram.
Okay, that's fantastic. And you're going to be coming and doing some work with us at the pain clinic as well. That I'm really excited about on gut health
Me too.
and chronic pain. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, yeah. All right,
Awesome.
great. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. And I will see everybody in the next
We'll be
episode.
we'll be in touch.